सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सान्निपातिकज्वर सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रहनक्षत्रदोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी क्रमगमविद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय विघ्नविनाशिनि रजनी सन्ध्ये मुन्दुभिनादे मानस्तोषे मानसवेगे शङ्खिनी चक्रिणी वज्रिणी गदिनी शूलिनी अपमृत्युविनाशिनी विश्वेश्वरी द्राविडी केशवदैते पशुपति सहिते धीममर्दिनि गमनी कामिनी शबरी विराटी वाचक्री ॐ द्रं 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 ॐ द्रं गुरु गुरु
Namaste and a warm welcome to each one of you for this morning session. Today we have a session on the uniqueness of mindfulness meditation being led by Sri Kathirasan K. This is the 7th day of the festival and I welcome you all to join us in this month-long celebrations being offered by Indica Yoga. As you all know, Indica Yoga is a platform that offers diverse and inclusive forms of yoga focusing on authenticity, immersion, and transformation. So this is the latest in the series that we have today, and I now invite Ms. Neha Raka to anchor the session. Ms. Neha Raka is one of the members of our team, of the anchoring team. She's also the founder of Iti Yoga, and she has been teaching yoga, taking happiness to people for last 2 decades. She has been the Yoga Ambassador of India to Vietnam and many other Eastern countries of the world. And she's also a certified pranic healer, NLP practitioner, and much more. Today she is anchoring, but she will also be leading a session with us shortly. So now I request Neha to take over and invite our speaker as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste everyone, and thank you so much Vinay Chandra. And thanks a lot to Indica Yoga. It's amazing, which is going on since a week. To move further and not let everybody wait, I would just come into the subject. Today, we've all gathered here to connect with our mind and utilize the uniqueness of this technique, mindfulness. And I have with me an experienced young dynamic speaker from Singapore, Kathirasan KG. So he is the founder and managing director of the Center of Mindfulness Group. He's a certified mindfulness trainer and professional. The certificate issued by the International Mindfulness Teachers Association, author of 3 different books. Not only that, I can say a rock star. He loves the rock music and he even is a musician. Not only that, he's also handling the corporate sector business and to train the people into how to utilize their time and their productivity. So he'll talk a lot more about it. And today's topic about uniqueness of mindfulness meditation is something which is the art of living in the present, something which everybody should know because we have so much in hand. And I think we should know how to utilize it in the best way. Sakshi Bhav, if I may say that. So let me invite him and give him the mic to continue the session. Before that, I just have one little announcement or a request from all of you. I'm sure you will have a lot of questions coming in your mind. Please do put them in the question and answer box rather than the chat box so that we can actually see the questions and put up for you at the end of the session. Welcome, Kathirasan ji. Namaste. And I'm sure the listeners are really waiting for you to start the session.
Thank you, Nehaji. And thanks for the introduction. Very good morning to everyone here gathered here today. And today I am going to share a little more about the topic of mindfulness meditation. So I have a slide deck, so I'm going to share a slide deck and I'm going to run through a slide deck so that you have a visual context to what I'm sharing. All right. Nehaji, can I start to present?
Yes, please, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So the topic for today is the uniqueness of mindfulness meditation. Now, I am very particular about titles and names for any talk because it needs to do justice. So the keyword here, as I see in this title, is the uniqueness. Now, why is mindfulness meditation unique? Now, the second thing that you see is that I've used the word or phrase mindfulness meditation. All right, so I am going to talk about why mindfulness is a type of meditation and why is it unique. All right, that's the focus of today's session. Now, before we begin, let us quickly do a centering practice. Now, a centering practice is maybe a 1-minute practice to ground ourselves in the present moment before I unfold the content of the talk. Now, when you're ready and you're feeling comfortable, now please close your eyes if you would like to do that. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you can keep your eyes open as well. Please do what works for you. And then gently shifting your attention to your breath. And then gently shifting your attention to the weight of your body on the chair that you are sitting in, perhaps, or the floor that you are sitting in, or maybe you are even standing. So notice the weight of your body. And then if you could, gently shift the body weight to the right side. And when you do that, you would notice an imbalance, and you could feel the weight of your body either on your right foot or your right hip if you are sitting. And then slowly shifting your body back to the center. And then noticing the difference. And then now gently shifting your body weight to the left side. Noticing the change of the pressure of the body weight on your feet or on your hips. Noticing your left foot or perhaps your left hip. And then gently shifting your body weight back to center. Acknowledging that we have just practiced centering and grounded in the present moment where you are right now. And then when you're ready, gently open your eyes. All right, with that, let us now begin the presentation. Now, a little about myself. I was first introduced to the spiritual dimension of mindfulness back in 1994 through books. And then I was formally trained from 1999 to about 2004 with a teacher in the Advaita Vedanta tradition of mindfulness, or sometimes also called the tradition of Shankara. And then I went on to study many other things, including Hatha Yoga. I'm also a yoga instructor for a while. And then eventually I learned the secular dimension of mindfulness, or the modern dimension of mindfulness. And after that, I wrote 3 books, 2 books on mindfulness and 1 book on Advaita Vedanta. All right, so you can see these have been my interest and my contribution to the world. I see myself as a contributor to the evolving tradition of contemplative studies as well as contemplative practices. In no way am I taking this position that I know everything. In fact, I think the more I know, I realize the more I don't know. So what I'm presenting to you right now is, at this present moment, what is it that I have learned? I'm sharing this with you. And in no way am I asking you to accept it, but I would like to invite you in that sense to explore what is being shared and then negotiate with your own understanding and take away your own piece of knowledge. So I don't believe that I have, or that what I have is the only way to understand mindfulness. So what is mindfulness? So mindfulness is actually mindfulness is a modern word. It is not an ancient word, because I'll tell you a little right now. The ancient word for mindfulness, or the etymology and the root, is sati. In Pali, it is called sati, which appears in the Buddhist text. And then in the Vedic text, you have the word smriti. All right, the word smriti appears in many texts, but in the Vedic tradition, the word smriti means many things. Sometimes smriti can mean text, sometimes smriti means that which is remembered. But we need to see that the root verb, or the dhatu, of the word smriti or sati is smra. Now the word smra means to remember. So therein lies the secret behind mindfulness, is something to remember. So we know that it has got to do with memory, and it's got to do with recollection. Now that is the actual word, or Sanskrit or Pali word for mindfulness. However, in 1881, Rhys Davids translated Smriti and Sati to mindfulness. Before that, nobody called this mindfulness in English. So after 1881, this person used the word mindfulness, and after that, everyone started to use the word mindfulness for Sati and Smriti. In my opinion, it may not be the best word. However, the word does serve its purpose in modern mindfulness. But in ancient mindfulness, it may not be always mindfulness. Another word that appears in the Vedic tradition is the word apramada. Now, apramada is a word used for vigilance or alertness. All right, so this is the next word that is closest to the word smriti. So as you can see, the jargons that we have in the Vedic tradition, for example, apramada, smriti, are probably the closest jargons to what mindfulness is. However, the concept of mindfulness, when I use the word concept, which means the practice and the philosophy, are actually more prevalent than the words. So I will talk about it briefly as well, but that is not the focus of today's topic though. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is mindfulness a meditation? Now, this is a big challenge these days because there are people who consider mindfulness not a meditation. And then there are people who claim that mindfulness is meditation. So let us look at that a little closer. So here is the various types of meditation recorded in research. As you can see, attentional training, hatha yoga, relaxation-based methods, brainwave vibration meditation, and so forth. So there are many types of meditation. The word meditation is the parent word or the umbrella word for many types of contemplative practices. All right, so of all of them, as you can see here, mindfulness is one distinct type of meditation, all right, that we need to recognize and acknowledge. So there are many types of meditation. So mindfulness is one type of meditation. That is why it is good to use the phrase mindfulness meditation, because then it allows people to see that mindfulness is one of the many types of meditation and a distinct one. So I like this particular image that I'm showing in the room right now. You can see here many types of vehicles, all right, a bus, a car, a cycle, a train, aeroplanes, and ship. Now, if you realize all of them move you from one place to another. Now, I liken different types of meditation to be different types of vehicles. Now, some of them travel at a different speed, and they carry different number of people, and it goes to different destinations. So likewise, every type of meditation has a unique purpose sometimes, and also a unique method. Sometimes they bring you to the same places using different methods, or sometimes there are same method can bring you to different places. That's very interesting. Now, that is how diverse meditation or types of meditation are. So there are different types, and they bring you to the same outcome or different outcomes, same methods or different methods. And likewise, different types of meditation, including mindfulness meditation, is unique. Now, I want to also qualify at this point in time. Now, when I am presenting about mindfulness right now, I am not taking the position that mindfulness is the best type of meditation. I'm not taking that position at all right? Because we cannot say, excuse me, we cannot say that the aeroplane is better than the car. We cannot claim that the bicycle is better than the ship, because every one of them is unique, and every one of them may have a unique purpose and may deliver a unique outcome. So therefore, it is, in my opinion, it would do injustice if we claim that one is the best and the rest of them are not. All right. So therefore, I take the view that everyone is unique and everyone has a unique purpose. And mindfulness meditation is one of the many unique types of meditation. I think there is also perhaps a more healthy way of looking at diversity. Now, let's look at the roots of modern mindfulness. I use the word modern mindfulness very, very mindfully. Now, the reason being, there are two types of mindfulness today, and I'll talk about that a little later. But for now, allow me to use the word modern mindfulness, which I will define a little later. So what are the roots of modern mindfulness? So let us look at the meditation practices or the evolution in the Asian traditions. So this is something, an adaptation that I have created from my own research as well. So we see that right from the beginning, a ritual form of meditation is found in the Vedic times. When I use the word Vedic, I'm very, very focused in the sense that it is the Veda. I'm talking about, those of you who may be aware, I'm talking about the Samhita Brahmana Aranyaka Upanishad, particularly the Aranyaka. All right, so a ritual type of meditation takes place. Some of you who may be very familiar with the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, you could see that in the first chapter itself. And then from there, we move into a philosophical type of meditation that comes in the Upanishads, all right, presents the philosophical type of meditation. And then we move into purely meditation. Now this comes for the first time in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, you see, and another evolution. And then from there, we see now a couple of branches. Then a Buddhist meditation comes about at a little later in about 535 BCE. A Buddhist version of this meditation comes up. And then from that point, from 100 CE till the present time, we see a couple of different types of meditation. One is called Tantra meditation, which comes during the times of the Puranas as well. And then about in the 10th century, we start to see Hatha Yoga meditation, all right, that comes about in the Hatha Yoga text. And then right now in this present time, in the last 100 years, especially I think a particular point in time where meditation became very famous in the US, especially after the famous talk by Swami Vivekananda at the Parliament of World Religions, the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Now, after that, we see a very, very rapid rise of what you call popular modern meditation, and it's taken very, very different forms. So the question now is, how do we locate mindfulness, modern mindfulness within this particular larger framework? It's a very important question. Now, as practitioner, you may be interested in this. As a researcher or what you call a hobbyist to trying to find out what this is, it is also very interesting. So modern mindfulness comes out from the modern meditation evolution, from the part of this segment rather. From the modern meditation branch comes modern mindfulness. But we must acknowledge that the practices are dependent on Buddhist meditation, all right, because it is very explicit. Even the inventor of modern mindfulness openly claims that he has used a lot of Buddhist practices. Now, I want to also distinguish practice from philosophy, all right? Some of you may not like the word philosophy. Here, when I use the word philosophy, I'm talking about a knowledge system, all right? So if you don't like the word, consider it a knowledge system or jnana, as you may want to call it. So the practice dimension is leaning on modern meditation as well as Buddhist meditation, all right? Especially two important suttas that come about that influences modern meditation, the Satipatthana Sutta and the Anapanasana Sutta as well, all right? So that you have. And then the roots of the mindfulness, as you can see here, the founder, the inventor also claims that it comes from Buddhism. I single out Buddhism because it is the biggest influence on modern mindfulness. And then Zen yoga, especially postural yoga, all right? I want to qualify here, it is not Hatha yoga. Because when I use the word Hatha yoga, a lot of you may be thinking that it is the framework that is given by the tradition of Hatha yoga, starting from texts like Amrita Siddhi downwards to even Hatha Yoga Pradipika and stuff like that. No, it is not Hatha yoga, it is postural yoga. So that would mean that the tradition of Krishnamacharya and his students would have had a greater influence on mindfulness. And then also Advaita Vedanta, especially Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharishi, all right, that Kabat-Zinn quotes, Kabat-Zinn acknowledges this. And then let's look at the philosophical aspect. Now, the philosophy of modern mindfulness is different from the practice dimension of mindfulness. The philosophy of modern mindfulness comes from these 5 domains. American Buddhism, which is a very unique strain of Buddhism. You may want to Google it and learn about it. Sufism, Taoism, yoga, as well as Advaita Vedanta. So these are the 5 philosophical, influences on modern mindfulness. Now I'm going to talk about the difference that I mentioned. What do I mean by modern mindfulness and spiritual mindfulness? Let us look at that right now. Now, if you look at modern mindfulness, now it is basically a combination of perhaps these 5 important philosophical schools and practice schools. But what has happened is the modern mindfulness is all about using or utilizing these practices and philosophies, but subtracting the faith dimension. All right, so this is a very important equation that we need to see. So in modern mindfulness, the faith dimension, when I use the word faith dimension, it means religious subscription, spirituality, or belief in a particular school of thought is subtracted from it. It is taken out. So that people from all faiths can practice it. And then there is an addition. All right, the addition is the empirical dimensions. Now the phrase empirical dimensions here means that the evidence base. That means modern mindfulness leans a lot or much on the evidence of research, right? And removing the faith dimension. So therefore, it becomes a scientific practice or an evidence-based practice. So this is how modern mindfulness is presented. And there are many reasons for this. And the founder, who is John Kabat-Zinn, you can see his name's being quoted, referenced below, mentions that he makes a very unique statement for doing this. He says, human suffering does not belong to any religion. So if human suffering does not belong to any religion, therefore, mindfulness should be made available to everyone. That was his reasoning. All right, I'm not here to critique his justification or his reasoning. That's not the purpose of today's session, but this is what he says. All right, that he wants to remove the faith dimension, make it secular, make it appealing to everyone, and so that anyone who is going through suffering or going through pain or chronic conditions or debilitation in well-being can actually practice modern mindfulness. So these are the intentions of modern mindfulness. Now, modern mindfulness is focused on mental and physical health. It's very important for us to recognize this. It is focused also on enhancing well-being. Now, this is the intention of modern mindfulness. And the practice of attention, what is being done is usually the attention to physical sensations, attention to breath, and attention to thoughts. So this is what usually in modern mindfulness, people pay attention to. There are 7 attitudes that are encouraged for a mindfulness practitioner, which is patience, trust, the beginner's mind, non-judging, letting go, non-striving, and acceptance. So these are the attitudinal foundations of modern mindfulness practice. Now, let's look at the evolution of mindfulness. Now, take a look at the picture on the right of the screen. Now, if you look at this picture, you know that this is an accessories holder, right? People may use this for, maybe men and women may use this for placing accessories. But did you know where it came from? Now, it came from this bottle. Can you see that? So originally, this was a plastic bottle. And the plastic bottle has now been repurposed. All right, so very important word, it has been repurposed. Now, this is how spiritual mindfulness became repurposed in the modern mindfulness world today. So you can see that the source of what you see on the right as an accessory holder was once a bottle. But the problem is there is an argument in today's world. Some people say that the one on the right is still a plastic bottle because they say your root is still a plastic bottle. So therefore, the modern mindfulness is still spiritual. You cannot take away the spiritual dimension. And then there are people who argue, no, it is not. They say that, no, it is not a spiritual practice anymore because it has been repurposed. You can't put 1.5 liters of water in the accessory holder on the right. So this argument is still happening till today. But I'm not going to go into the argument because it will go into the world of opinions, which is perfectly fine. We can take different positions, but that is not the purpose of today's session. So, but let us understand what we can learn from this debates and discussion that is taking place. We know that the modern meditation, which is repurposed mindfulness, modern mindfulness rather, repurposed mindfulness, is focused towards stress reduction, emotional regulation, managing your emotions, self-awareness enhancement, enhancing self-awareness, and happiness and well-being. That we are very clear. And also clear that the spiritual mindfulness was aimed at liberation or enlightenment, which I call it a soteriological goal, which is mukti, moksha, apavarga, nirvana. You can add on all the different words that we use for liberation or enlightenment. So this is one thing that we need to recognize, the difference between the outcomes. So in the those of you who may be familiar with the Anubandha Chatushtaya, the prayojana, as we call it, is different. All right, the prayojana of the two types of mindfulness are different. But the question is, can they be integrated to be one? Yes, certainly. All right, so the practices of modern mindfulness and spiritual mindfulness can also become one to become a third school of thought. All right, we cannot deny that possibility, because there are people who practice it that way as well. Now let's look at modern mindfulness in particular right now. So this is the definition that people across the globe accept for mindfulness, because it comes from John Kabat-Zinn, the man who invented modern mindfulness. I use the word invented because he was a great innovator in that sense. He took all of these ideas that I shared earlier and came up with this practice, and he was a sincere practitioner. We need to recognize that as well. And he says it is the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience moment by moment. So this is the practice definition of mindfulness. The key word here to me is awareness. So you can see then mindfulness is a awareness practice. Now, I use the triangle of mindfulness to frame this definition in a more easy way. All right, so in an easier way to look at this is that mindfulness consists of three important components. Number one is awareness. In all mindfulness practices, there is awareness, the practice of awareness. Number two is attention. Paying attention is another component of mindfulness. And the last one is acceptance, practicing acceptance. Now that becomes the third component of mindfulness. Now, many of you may be wondering, what is the uniqueness of mindfulness meditation? In my opinion, one of the most unique things that mindfulness meditation is different from other types of meditation is acceptance. Now, acceptance makes mindfulness meditation very unique. And I'm going to talk more about that from a technical perspective shortly. Now, let's talk about the uniqueness right now. So you can see there are two styles of meditation always in all kinds of meditation. This is not something that you may not know. Many of you may already know. One style of meditation is focused attention. That means we focus on an object or an entity with focus. That means we try to, what I call, sustain our train of thoughts, having a single object in our awareness or attention. That is one style of meditation. The second style of meditation is called open monitoring. Now, open monitoring is a different type of meditation where we just observe things as they are in the present moment. We don't react to what's happening. We don't restrain our thoughts. All right. We don't hold on to a single object in our mind. Whatever thoughts that pass through our minds, we observe it like the way clouds are passing in space or in the sky. Is the second type of meditation. So if you look at this, mindfulness is a meditation that combines these two practices, and that's why it is unique. Now, I want to also emphasize that usually focused attention practices would create an attitude such that we don't want thoughts in our mind. We want to make our mind empty. Now, that is a usual, practice when it comes to focused attention. Of course, there are exceptions, but usually people tend to practice it in a way that they want to remove thoughts, or sometimes they use the word nirodha in Sanskrit, which means to sometimes annihilate, alleviate, remove, or resolve, whatever that you may. There are too many modern definitions to it as well. All right, so that is very unique to focus attention. So mindfulness adds another dimension, which is open monitoring. And that is related to acceptance, which means that we accept whatever happens in the mind when we meditate. So I am paying attention to the breath, but my thoughts come into that field of awareness. I acknowledge it and I accept it. I don't become riled up because of that. I don't become upset because there are thoughts coming in. So that is the unique, what you call approach of mindfulness meditation, where it integrates the two. Now, so you can see here, I'm creating an equation for you. So focused attention plus open monitoring equal to modern mindfulness. And these practices are not only confined to modern mindfulness, these exist in the earlier traditions that I spoke about in the earlier slides that I shared. It comes from there. It is not a modern invention. All right, focused attention is already there in the ancient times. Open monitoring was also there, but they were in the hands of different traditions. All right, so that's some of you who are interested, you can research more on that. Now, so therefore, I'm going to now conclude the primary differences are that mindfulness meditation is not a state of mental silence. Now, this is very key. All right, it is not a state of mental silence. That's the first misconception people have. They think it is mental silence. The second thing that I always emphasize is people think that mindfulness is for relaxation. It is not for relaxation. It is very important for us to recognize it is not for relaxation. Relaxation is a secondary outcome of mindfulness. It is not the primary outcome. All right, take note of that. And the third one is, now it is not a situation where you don't have thoughts or thought processes while you're meditating. So in mindfulness, the thoughts can be there. It is not a problem. All right, that is something that is unique. And the last one is, it does not involve breath manipulation. This is very important. So a lot of you may be aware, since this is a yoga festival, that pranayama. Now pranayama as a breath manipulation does not exist in mindfulness practices. Instead, we notice the breath as it is. It's a big difference. All right, so there is no breath manipulation, there is no kumbhaka, if you want to know. There's no kumbhakas, there is no ratio in the way we breathe. It is not there in mindfulness meditation. So the other unique thing about mindfulness is that you can measure mindfulness today. That is the most interesting thing. All right, you can measure mindfulness. And that's why you can see here, the number of research papers on mindfulness has increased exponentially in the last 10 years. Can you see that? From 1980, almost none. By the time you come to 2019, you see 1,200 research papers on mindfulness. The reason being that the evidence is very compelling because it can be measured. Now, that's why people people see that it can be a very powerful practice. And the impact on mindfulness is mostly on the brain. If you realize here that the focus of mindfulness is actually the impact it has on the brain. So in my work, I train mindfulness teachers, I certify them. I spend a lot of time spending people so that they understand the nuances of mindfulness. It is not about the body, it is the impact on the brain. That is the key focus of mindfulness meditation. So I've shown here from a research, where are the parts of the brains where mindfulness impacts, all right? Now, these are the 10 results recorded across mindfulness research. So these 10 results happen to occur across most of the research across the globe. Now, the significant thing that I want to point out is the structural brain changes, which is number one. The brain literally changes when someone practices meditation or mindfulness meditation. The rest of it is here, you can see. Number 4 is interesting, increase in spirituality. So whatever religion that person happens to be in, the spirituality gets enhanced, all right, that happens. And also number 8, addiction substitution. Now, mindfulness meditation has been found to be very effective in manage addictions, like drug addiction or other substance addictions, alcohol addictions, gambling addictions. Now, all of that, even smoking cessation. Mindfulness meditation is posing a great alternative and also a complementary practice to the usual, anonymous sessions that people have. As you know, they come here, they have a few steps that they choose. Now, that traditional method, along with mindfulness meditation, seems to be very powerful. These are other benefits of mindfulness from research. You can see that there is a tremendous impact on different parts of our life. I'm going to put this up for about 10 seconds so that you can just quickly glance. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now, applications of mindfulness. Now, the interesting thing today is mindfulness has become different types of programs and interventions. So as you can see, mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is the first generational program. And then there's mindfulness-based well-being enhancement, mindful leadership, mindful education, mindful discipline, mindfulness at work, even mindful weight loss, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which is an alternative to psychotherapy, or some people may know CBT, and also mindfulness-based relapse prevention for addictions. Now, I have, my experience is I have trained people in multiple domains, in leadership, in schools, in discipline, and even well-being enhancement. Now, my insight is it's a very powerful mechanism because it helps people to look at situations from an inside-out perspective. Now, a lot of times we look at outside in, we let the world impact us, and then we react or respond to it. Mindfulness changes the orientation inside out. But I must say that this inside out orientation may happen also in other meditation traditions. It is not only confined to mindfulness. Although because mindfulness is modern and secular, it goes into a lot of these spaces and help people with their challenges. So that's the incentive of modern mindfulness in the modern world. You can see here a couple of organizations that have practiced mindfulness. You can see it is growing, all right? It's growing. Many organizations are bringing mindfulness because it is secular. Now, the practices of mindfulness are quite unique as well. Now, you can see here, I've listed down a couple of practices. There are more. On the left, you can see sitting meditation, body scan, and mindful yoga. Now, these three are considered to be the core practices of mindfulness. We call it the core, or sometimes we also called formal practices of mindfulness. On the right side are other types of mindfulness practices that you can find. So when you go into a mindfulness program, usually they are conducted over 8 weeks, all right, 8 weeks. So all evidence-based programs are conducted over 8 weeks. And then you will go through all of this in that 8-week program. Now, I also want to show you how mindful yoga asanas look like. So here are the asanas that are used in the mindful evidence-based 8-week mindfulness program. And you can see so many familiar asanas that you know of, right? It's all right here. That shows that as earlier as I shared, the postural tradition of yoga has a huge influence in the mindfulness-based programs. Now with this, I have come to the end of the presentation, and I hope it was useful. And let us do a mindfulness practice right now so that you also get a flavor, a very short one, all right? That's the plan, a very short practice so that you get the flavor of what it is, all right? So I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna guide you through a short 3-minute mindfulness practice right now, all right? So when you're ready, I would like all of you to adopt a comfortable seat, all right? Which keeps your back upright and relaxed. So if you're sitting on a chair, ensure that your back is away from the backrest so that your spine is upright and you are also comfortable, very important. Sukha, all right, is very important. You need to be comfortable. And then when you're ready, please close your eyes. And then gently bring your attention to your breathing. You can either do this by observing your nostrils or your throat or your chest or the abdomen. Choose a spot that works for you. Without changing the way you breathe, just observe and notice your breathing. thoughts may come into your mind, and that's okay, because that's what we do. Simply notice those thoughts and then gently bringing your attention back to your breathing. Bringing curiosity to the practice. Is your breath fast or is it slow? Is it deep or is it shallow? Is the air that you are breathing, is it cool or is it warm? Sustaining this curiosity every moment as you continue paying attention to your breathing. As we approach the end of this practice, give yourself credit for practicing this meditation for this couple of minutes. And with that gratitude to yourself, you may now open your eyes. All right, so now with that, I have completed my presentation for today, and I'll take questions. Over to you, Nehaji.
It was really amazing what we experienced, and especially the difference between the two, the how we transit and evolved from the spiritual meditation to the modern meditation. I'm sure a lot of participants and others had this question of what's the difference? Is that one the same or this is better? I do have a question, something very similar to this concept, which is, can you expand on the relationship between mindfulness and hard problem of consciousness? If mindfulness is an experience, we as yet do not have technology or experimental methodologies to measure mindfulness. So can you throw some light on this?
All right. So in the question makes an assumption that mindfulness is equals to consciousness. All right. That is an assumption in this question. I want to go deeper on that assumption. Now, we need to recognize there are two types of consciousness when it comes to the Indian philosophical traditions. The first type of consciousness is confined to the mind. We call this sometimes cognitive consciousness. It depends on the antakarana or the mind. The second type of consciousness is the state of being, where we say that the self, or sometimes even called Purusha, Brahman, Atma, the many words used for that kind of consciousness. We call it absolute consciousness. So mindfulness is not interested in the absolute consciousness because it cannot be measured, right? That is not the focus of mindfulness at all. The focus of mindfulness is in the cognitive consciousness, which deals with the manovyapara, as we call it. It is entirely the transaction of the mind that we are interested in. That can be measured because we can measure that by MRI scans. We can also measure that by questionnaires, self-report questionnaires that can measure. And I've done that in Singapore, right? I've measured this and you can actually see the effects.
That's really nice. Something which will continue to your answer is another question saying, can we take modern mindfulness as an improvement over traditional meditation, or it's simply a different, distinct one?
Okay. Now, I would be very, very careful not to use the word improvement because it makes the assumption that the goal is the same, right? You can only improve something when you are For example, I have this
Very
cup,
true.
right? Right, correct. So I can improve this cup if I want to make a better cup, but the goals are different. So if the goals are different, I cannot use the word improvement. It would not do justice. The traditional mindfulness has a specific purpose. The modern mindfulness has a specific purpose. So we should not compare the two, because that also shows our understanding and appreciation of these two traditions. You can only improve if the goals are the same, or else you can't improve it.
Very well said. So we went through three main pillars: awareness, acceptance, and attention. So in that, we have another question coming up, that can you explain the acceptance aspect of mindfulness? How do you relate to that?
Okay, so now let me give you a comparison. Like, for example, when we meditate, when thoughts come into our mind, what is our attitude? Now, a lot of us, we feel that thoughts are a problem, because you know why? I want to be free from thoughts is one particular attitude we may have towards meditation. In mindfulness, you don't have that, because people practice acceptance. We accept that distraction. We accept that those thoughts in the field of awareness. Even if you're sitting, what do you call, cross-legged, and you are practicing mindfulness, if there is a pain on your knee, now some of us may feel that, oh dear, I have pain. In mindfulness, we accept that pain. We consciously bring our mind to that spot where we have the pain, and we acknowledge it, we accept it, and then we resume the meditation. So this acceptance mechanism is very strong. In itself, it is there. In this last practice that I facilitated, if you would have noted, I said thoughts would come and go. That is fine. That is okay. So the instruction itself is driven towards that.
Very true. Another question is in the terms of practice. There are a couple of people who are asking, is there a different kind of mindfulness practice for different ailments or different problems a person is going through physically? And also, I'll continuously get the next one, which is very closer, that can it be done? The practice of mindfulness can be done with open eyes, because the later, like closed eyes, may get the person into sleepiness or drowsiness, or maybe just lose the connection.
Okay. So let me address the first question, which is basically sorry, can you please ask the first question again? What's the first question?
Basically, it's about how and what kind of practices would go for the different ailments, or is it some similar kind of practice or different for different problems?
So most evidence-based programs of mindfulness would have the same practices. The formal practices would always be there. The mindful yoga or mindful movements, sometimes also called that way, and then body scan and sitting meditation are a mainstay. But the allied practices would vary, because they are the ones that are targeted towards a particular outcome. But the main practices would always be there, right? That would not change, right? So that is basically the difference.
Is there a particular practice you would suggest for somebody going through a heart problem or something chronic or something really?
Right. No, I would not suggest anything like that over a webinar. I think we need to understand the person first. I think it's a big risk for us to make this assumption that I can dish out a practice and that may solve your problem. The higher chance is it may create more problems for you. So it is best that you speak with someone who is a certified mindfulness teacher and have a conversation with them, and someone who is also aware of your condition, because certified mindfulness teachers are not doctors. They don't know about the heart. All right. So it is important to talk to someone who knows about both of these subjects, or also aware that they are ignorant of this subject, which is also very helpful sometimes.
In that matter, I would personally tell the person to connect to you, because you would be the right person to personally deal it. And I'm sure you will share some of your contact details with the participants also. They would definitely have more queries and more learnings from you. Coming to the second question, which I had asked, is about the closing or keeping the eyes open. Which one, and is it possible, either of them?
Right. So mindfulness practices, there are practices which you can practice with your eyes closed, And there are also some practices you do with eye open. Like for example, mindful movement or mindful yoga is done with your eyes open. So if you feel that you are someone who falls asleep very easily, the teacher would recommend doing mindful movements instead, because it is as good as doing any other practice, right? Any other seated practice. So there are various options available. And again, the teacher would be the best person to guide you.
It's, I think, more like a personal journey, if I can add up. So you can just evolve as per your pace. The beautiful diagram which you showed about the different styles of meditation, I think even in mindfulness, it goes similar, that every individual has a different pace and a different path
Yes.
towards the practice.
Yeah.
So,
So in an 8-week,
yes.
let me add to that, Nehaji, because that's why in the mindfulness 8-week program, it is actually a journey that people take to discover different types of practices. Towards the end, you will then gravitate towards one or two, and that becomes the mainstay for you. You know, that's how it is taught. Yeah.
So very connected to this 8-week program, I have a question. Does it take 8 weeks to cause the changes in the brain? And is that the reason we have 8 weeks? What's the symbol for it? And on that structure, are there changes seen which is at the physiological level?
Okay. So there is one important factor that we need to recognize is the maturity of the individual. I'm talking about the physical, emotional, and the intellectual maturity of the individual has a significant impact on the result of mindfulness practice. However, the 8-week is considered to be the optimal level of time for a person to sustain the practice. Now, I'm talking about sustain the practice, not that there are results. But the results of the practice depend on your maturity. Some of them will start seeing it in the 5th week. Some of them will start seeing it on the 6th week, 7th week. Some of them would probably see it after the 8-week session, and then they have a daily practice, and then they start seeing it. So there are a couple of variables.
Very nice. So another question is something about concentration. So the difference between how we connect mindfulness and concentration, how different are they, or what's the relation between the two?
Concentration, again, English word, I think we are talking about the word dharana. All right.
Yeah.
So if you use the word dharana, then mindfulness, one component of mindfulness has dharana. All right. But dharana does not have the second component, which is acceptance. Right. Or what we call as the open monitoring. It is not there in dharana. So mindfulness, one aspect of mindfulness is concentration. There is another aspect which is absent, and that would make mindfulness complete.
So if we consider as the state of thoughtlessness, which we were even seeing in your slide, so is it possible that through the mindfulness practice, we can reach thoughtlessness? This is another question coming up.
Thoughtlessness is not the goal of mindfulness. Thoughtlessness was never the goal of even the spiritual mindfulness. So I want to make it very clear.
Which is, I think, yes, please continue.
Yeah, please go ahead, Nehaji, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just saying, which is, I think, the biggest myth or a confusion which many people, go into a session to attend or to, that they want to just clear, they want to just come into the state of thoughtlessness.
Yes. So let me tell you, let me give you an illustration of this. Now, if you have a headache, would you remove your head or would you cure the headache? Right? So it's a good question, right? So if you have a problem with thoughts, the solution is not to remove the thoughts, is to resolve the thoughts, is to manage the thoughts, mastery over
Beautifully
the thoughts.
said.
Yeah, so the mindfulness approach in the spiritual traditions, you can see that even in the spiritual traditions, I can even quote the verses for you if you would like. And in the modern traditions, thoughts are never a problem. Thoughtlessness is not the goal, because you don't have any problem when there are no thoughts. The skill to develop is the mastery over the problems, not the absence of thoughts. Because if you're looking for a thoughtless experience, you have it every night when you're sleeping.
So to add up into this, if we are trying to say the state of thoughtlessness, we are not trying to reach, that's not the goal. But ultimately, if we talk in the traditional text of yogic text, I mean, we are trying to reach that. That's the aim of reaching to samadhi, I think. So how do you kind of say? Do we have to leave mindfulness half the way and go further?
Okay, so I want to share that there are merits in the approach of. I use the word Patanjali yoga. I will be very hesitant to use yogic systems because there are multiple types of yogic systems. All right. So in the school of Patanjali yoga, there is one particular interpretation where people see that the chitta vritti nirodha means the alleviation of thought or annihilation of thought, thoughtlessness. Right now, that is one type of yogic system. There is also other types of yogic systems. For example, the Advaita Vedanta tradition do not subscribe to this Chitta Vritti Nirodha. It says, like, for example, Yatra Yatra Mano Yati Tatra Tatra Samadhayaha, which means wherever your mind goes, there is Samadhi. So what does that mean? That means Samadhi happens in the very state where there are thoughts. Where the mind goes, there Samadhi is. Or there is another line in the Kena Upanishad, Pratibodha Viditam Matam, which means that you can find this freedom in the very thought itself. You don't have to become thoughtless to become free. So there are two distinct yogic systems in the Indian philosophical traditions. One particular system is the thoughtless state, which has its merits because the thoughtless state practices strengthen the mind very well. I need to acknowledge that from a personal perspective. The traditions that talk about freedom in spite of thoughts, I use the word freedom in spite of thoughts, which is the Advaita Vedanta traditions, or even the modern mindfulness traditions talk about that as well, although they are separate. Now, they don't have a challenge with this. They say that you are free even in spite of thoughts. Yeah. You can be free, rather.
Thank you so much. I'll just have one last question for you, which is about the practical implication of mindfulness in terms of time management, or you can say, how can we productively manage and,
Right.
work
So,
with time?
right. So
Though
okay,
everybody has less time today.
So when I talk about this, there are three things that I say when I talk to people. Now, number one, you are bound by time. Number two, you master time. Number three, you transcend time. All right, three options that you have. Now, if you want to be productive, number one, we need to master time. Mastery of time is something that is quite impossible, to be very honest. But how you master time is by managing your time through calendar. The calendar is a very important way to manage your time. So we need to master time by dividing time into sections so that we can get things done. So there is a second method, mastery over time. The third method, which is transcending time, which is your awareness. Now that is very important because that gives you internal stability, a certain degree of internal stability that where you feel very secure. Now, when you do your task and your work from that space of stability, then you will not be upset by failure. It's a very important point in doing task and being productive, because productivity is measured by success. I'm telling you from the mindfulness perspective, your productivity is not just about your success, it's your acceptance towards failure that can make you then more successful. So that is a very important component. Mastery over time, and also knowing that you are that awareness through that practice that allows you to be timeless in that sense. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, beautifully. And I think it's really nice to have this question at the last, because I am sure people associate a lot through the success these days. And so many of them are into the trap of judging that if you're not successful, you're not there. It's like a failure. And it's very important to have mindfulness in your life. I think each one of us should have this as a practice, which is not just for an hour or a minutes or this, but a part of your routine life, 24 hours, 365 days, they say. It should just go on. So with that, I'm really amazed and very, very fortunate to actually attend and host this particular session for you today. Before we go to the next session, which is going to be there in the afternoon today, I would like you to give a little advice. We'll just see that and come back. And also, I would like you to share your details about how do people connect with you, because there are quite a few more questions which I wasn't able to take today in the session. So if you can share first your contact details and then we go back
Okay.
to the next session.
All right. So here is my contact details. You can see there's a QR code here. So you can use the QR code and then you can write to me from that website, or you can go to the website that I have on the slide and then you can reach out to me. All right. So I'm going to put this up as you are taking this, and then can I do this? You want me to share something as well? Am I, Nehaji?
Just maybe your email or whatever you prefer, your website, email,
Yeah,
something.
sure. I have
think
the
website
QR
is
code.
already there.
Website is there. Yes.
already
Just
there.
write to me. Yes, yes.
I
Write to me
think
to
just
the
they
website.
can connect to you now. So I'll just.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'll just quickly go to the next sessions thing. I'll come back to you for a little quick advice tip for everybody.
Sure, sure.
Thanks.
So this afternoon, we have the session on Yoga for Homeostasis by Dr. Lalita Gaurav. And the evening, we have a session on Nidra Yoga by Andre Rie. Andre Rie is one of the well-known yoga teachers in Europe and in the French-speaking part of the world. And he's also the founder of Nidra Conscious Foundation. And he himself will be delivering this talk and also giving us the practice. And that will be 1.5 hour sessions from 7 to 8:30. Please do join us. And we also have a line of events from tomorrow also. Tomorrow morning, we have a session on the Anandamayi Mass guidance. And in the noon, we have Ayurveda psychology. And in the evening, we have the interaction with the team of the Namami Yoga Vidya. So all interesting events lined up. So please do stay and join us for all these events. And I'll return this back to Nehaji.
Thank you, Vinavya. So here again, coming back to you, Kathirasan ji, some little tip and advice for everybody to connect to this mindfulness meditation in their lives.
So I don't have any piece of advice because I'm not a person who likes to give advice, but one thing that I would like to share is that this festival is a great opportunity for us to recognize the wisdom tradition of mindfulness, which is that knowledge comes from all directions. We can learn from different systems, we can learn from different perspectives, and through being receptive to all of these different perspectives, we can then grow as an individual. I don't believe there is one solution to fix all of the world's problems. I think the best solution is actually you. And the way that you become a solution is to keep your ears open, be receptive, keep your eyes open, and learn from all that comes to you, but with a discretion. And that is where I think you can unfold your wisdom. That is all I can share with you because it has worked for me, but it may not work for you. And that is also fine.
So well said. And I think I'll just add up that taking the you, which you have focused and mentioned is important, is the word coming, the uniqueness which comes from it. So each individual is unique. So I think it's all about you, all the participants and all the people who are there. And then how this uniqueness in you can connect with the uniqueness in mindfulness, which will take you further in your journeys. With that, thank you so much for your 2 decades of knowledge sharing, which was, of course, very less than 45 minutes, but we got a lot. And I'm sure many would be connecting with you to get further into this journey. Thanks a lot, Kathirasan ji. And thank you to Indica Yoga for this amazing sessions, which we are very privileged to have. And I would really request all the participants to connect to all the everyday sessions which are going on at morning 7 to 8 and after, in the late morning 11:30 to 12:30 and then evening 7 to 8:30. Thank you so much, Kathirasan ji. It was a privilege having you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And wish everyone safety and well-being in these difficult times of COVID-19. Stay safe and take care of yourself.
Thank you.